Okay, after recording this entire video, I just now noticed that my cat Gibson is back there and he's cleaning himself and making really loud licking noises. I am hoping that he did not do that through the entire video. If he did, I am so sorry. I don't know if I can edit that out. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another missing video. Today, we are going to be talking about the case of Zachary Bernhardt. His missing case is the longest running Amber Alert in Florida, and there have been a few other channels that have covered this case, but it's been a while, and I thought it would be a good idea to get his story out there and maybe get some renewed attention on it. Zachary Michael Cole Bernhardt, who often went by the name Zach, was born on December 18th of 1991 to his 21-year-old mother, Leah Hackett. Zach's father was never in the picture, and like a lot of single mothers, Leah did struggle, but she had a good support system with her family who absolutely adored both she and her son, and they were always willing to help her out. In 1994, Leah had her second child, a little girl, whose name I will not be mentioning in this video. Leah was living in Michigan with Robert, the baby girl's dad, and little Zach, but the relationship didn't last, and Leah moved back to Florida to be closer to her family, and she took both Zach and her baby daughter with her. When Leah's daughter was around 2 years old, Robert came to Florida to visit his daughter, and Leah asked him if he would watch Zach that day too. He agreed, but Leah didn't show back up to pick up the kids for several days. Once she showed up, Robert was obviously pretty ticked off and ended up taking baby girl back to Michigan with him, went to court, and gained full custody. I don't believe Leah saw her daughter much after that, if at all. So once again, it was just Leah and Zach. They moved around quite a bit, and in 1999, Leah and Zach, who was now 8 years old, moved into the Savannah Trace apartment complex at 2690 Drew Street in Clearwater, Florida, which the complex is not called Savannah Trace anymore, I don't think. I believe the property has exchanged hands, and I believe it is now called the Standard Apartments. The complex consists of multiple apartment buildings and amenities like swimming pools, playgrounds, a fitness center, and I believe a tennis court as well. Mother and son were very close. Leah was a fun mom, but she didn't let Zach get away with acting up either. She had a good balance of being the mom and the best buddy. Zach was described as being a very smart, sweet, quiet, well-behaved boy. He wasn't wild and crazy and all over the place like most kids. He preferred to be calm and put things together, build things. His aunt stated in the Investigation Discovery episode that she always thought he would grow up to be an architect. Zach, who was in 3rd grade at Eisenhower Elementary, did very well in school. His grades were great, he paid attention in class, he got along with others, and he never caused any trouble. He loved the beach, the water, building sandcastles, and playing with his cousins, which there were a lot of. According to family and teachers who had Zach in class, Leah was a good mom. Sure, she had struggled, but when it came to raising her son, she tried her best and took very good care of him. She provided for him the best way she could and was very much involved with his school and activities. Leah was working nights for a telemarketing company. She had been working there for about a year and it paid pretty well. I think it was one of the better jobs she had had. Like most night shifters, she slept during the day, and on her days off, she kept the same schedule, staying up till early morning and sleeping while the sun was up and Zach was at school. Luckily, she had a friend in the apartment complex that would watch Zach for her at night while she worked. Things really seemed to be looking up for Leah and Zach, but unfortunately, something absolutely devastating was about to happen. On Sunday, September the 10th of 2000, 8-year-old Zach had spent the majority of the day playing outside with other kids who lived in the Savannah Trace apartment complex. That evening, Zach and Leah had dinner in their apartment and watched movies together until pretty late in the evening. Since the following day would have been a school day, I am kind of surprised that Leah would let him stay up that late. It wasn't Labor Day weekend, so they did have school on Monday. Maybe she was letting him stay up late so she could get some extra time with him, being as she slept during the day. But anyway, Zach fell asleep on the couch around 11 p.m., so Leah picked him up and carried him to her bed to sleep for the night. He had asked his mom earlier in the night if he could sleep in her bed, and she had told him that he could, so that's why she put him in her room instead of his own. Leah stayed up, watching TV, surfing the internet, talking with people in online chat rooms, and doing some chores around the apartment. Again, her body was on a night shift schedule, so it was not at all unusual for her to be up all night. Around 1 a.m., she says she took out the garbage, and she actually got in her car to drive the bags of trash to the dumpster. I don't know why she drove instead of just walking it out. I'm unsure how far away the dumpsters were. Maybe she had multiple bags, and it was too far to walk, and she didn't want to make multiple trips when she could just haul it all in her car at once. Around 3 to 4 a.m., the exact time is unclear, she decided to take a walk around the apartment complex to maybe get rid of some excess energy and make herself sleepy. She checked on Zach, who was still sound asleep, and then she left the apartment, leaving her unit door unlocked. She says she walked around for a bit, then on a whim, swam in the apartment complex's pool, which was about 100 yards away from her apartment building. She claims she only swam from one end of the pool to the other before getting out. And she had swam in the clothes she was wearing, as she did not have a swimsuit on, and she also hadn't taken a towel with her. When she returned to her apartment just 15 minutes later, according to her, she said she was really chilly since she was soaking wet from the swim and the AC was on, so she decided to take a hot shower to warm up. And as she exited her bathroom around 4:30 a.m., she looked over and realized Zach was no longer in her bed. I don't know why she didn't notice he wasn't in the bed before she got in the shower. Maybe the room was dark and the pillows and blankets made it look like he was in there, but the bed was empty. She looked all around the apartment but did not find him. She even checked the gap between the bed and the wall, thinking maybe he had just slipped down there, but he had not. After searching every inch of the apartment with no luck, Leah ran to the neighbor's apartment, the one who would babysit Zach while she was at work, and banged on the door till they woke up to see if maybe, just maybe, Zach had gone there, but he hadn't. At 4:47 a.m., Leah made the call to 911 to report her son missing.
911, what is your emergency? I can't find my son. I went to the pool, and then I came back, and I got a good shower, and he wasn't here. Doctor, your door was unlocked by your door. It was unlocked. This is my fault. It's the best seat. Oh, boy. Oh, my God, officer's coming out for something.
Within minutes, Clearwater Police were at Savannah Trace, and so were the news crews. Leah's mother, Carol, and sister Billy Jo showed up shortly after, having received a frantic call from Leah. Billy Jo drove Leah to the police station to be questioned, while Carol, Zach's grandmother, stayed behind at the apartment in case Zach returned. She did not want to leave. Officers secured the crime scene. They took DNA and fingerprint evidence. Photos were taken of the apartment. Items of Zach's were collected. As police went through the home, there were no signs of a crime. They saw no evidence of a struggle, a break-in, or anything at all unusual inside the apartment. The only thing missing was Zachary. They did have a small dog in their apartment, but I don't believe any neighbors, reported hearing the dog bark as if there were an intruder. But not all dogs bark. My dog doesn't bark at all in the house when people come in, unless we give him the command to do so. But if he's out in the yard and sees someone, he will bark like he's going to eat you alive. So all dogs are different, and maybe this little dog didn't make any sound at all, even if someone the dog didn't know entered the apartment. Down at the police department, Leah was talking to investigators. She gave them the timeline of the night, putting Zach to bed, taking out the trash, going for a walk, jumping in the pool, the shower, everything that had led up to the time she noticed her son was gone. She told them she wasn't sure why she had jumped in the pool because she didn't really even like swimming that much. Police questioned her about anyone that would have wanted to take Zach. She told them she couldn't think of anyone that would have reason to kidnap him. Police also asked her about Zach's dad. She gave police Zach's father's name, even though she hadn't seen him in years. When they contacted Zach's biological father, he didn't even know he had had a kid. Apparently, Leah had never told him, and he had never had any contact with Zach. Even after he was told by police that he had a son and that child was now missing, he was not interested in being involved. He didn't live in Florida and hadn't been in the area, so he was cleared. Leah was obviously frantic and crying while down at the station, but police said they felt she wasn't telling them all she knew. They also thought she was acting a little different. She would be devastated one moment, then she would talk about Zach and be smiling and cracking a joke the next, which I myself don't read much into that because everyone reacts differently to trauma. Some people make jokes at inappropriate times to kind of self-soothe, I guess. After hours and hours of questioning, Leah was sent home. She later stated that she did take a polygraph to prove her innocence in her son's disappearance, but was never told whether or not she passed it. Police have never denied nor confirmed that she did take one. A massive grid search was conducted, spreading over a 2-mile radius of woods, brush, and nearby waterways. 60 local, state, and federal law enforcement officers searched nearby Cliff Stevens Park and Alligator Creek and other bodies of water, but found nothing. Sniffer dogs were brought in, but they did not detect Zach's scent anywhere outside the apartment, so with no scent, they couldn't hit on a trail to follow. Aerial and water searches took place. Still nothing. Zach's cousins were not allowed to help search since they were young kids, but they wanted to assist in some way, so they took on the task of handing out and hanging up the flyers that had been printed. Police questioned everyone that knew Zach. Leah's neighbors told law enforcement that they saw Leah's vehicle coming and going several times between 3 a.m. and 3:45 a.m. This has not been confirmed, but this would have been around the time Leah had said she was in her apartment with her son. This would have been before she said she went for the walk. But Leah says the only time she left in her car was to drive the garbage to the dumpster at 1 a.m. I'm assuming Savannah Trace didn't have cameras back then, or police would have been able to confirm Leah or the neighbors' claims, or at least been able to see something that would have helped the investigation. Police apparently collected male DNA from the apartment, but they have never said what type of DNA they obtained, whether it is hair, blood, or other bodily fluid, or where they got it from in the apartment. In fact, them having DNA is very vaguely mentioned in maybe one article, and that's it. They have never elaborated on anything else about it that I could find. Leah did make a plea for her son's return on the local news 2 days after he vanished.
Anyone who has ever met Zach has loved Zach. The support of the community has shown us how much Zach is loved. We miss him. We love him very much, and we want him to come home. We're all here waiting, so please don't stop looking for Zach and help bring Zach home.
I think that was the only time she spoke out publicly, and there may be a reason why she didn't do it more than once. The media and community mercilessly pounced on her after Zach disappeared. Great efforts were made to dig up her past and reveal broken relationships, trips to bars, lost jobs, and evictions from homes. Rumors were spread that she killed him because she wanted to party and having a kid was cramping her style, or that she drugged him to keep him asleep so she could bar hop without him waking up, and maybe she had given him too much medicine and his death was an accident. People speculated that she jumped in the pool to wash off evidence, but there was no proof that any of these speculations were in any way true, or that Leah had ever harmed her son. I have even seen where people were claiming that in the 911 call, she said he was the best behaved little boy. Was. People were claiming her use of the word was is a red flag because she's using him in the past tense. I listened to that 911 call a dozen times, and what I hear her say is, he's the best behaved little boy. Am I hearing it wrong? Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you hear her say. The local residents and media essentially made her suspect number one, and people would even shout things at her when she was out in public, calling her a murderer, among other things. A few weeks after Zach's disappearance, Leah moved out of her Savannah Trace apartment, and a few months after that, she moved to a different town to try to distance herself from her accusers, but it didn't work and people still harassed her out in public, so she eventually moved away from Florida altogether and no longer participated in the searches or public media events for Zach. I have seen it reported that she no longer talked to police either, but it's quite possible she did stay in contact with them and we just aren't privy to that information. I can't see police just deciding to stop being in contact with her or vice versa. In 2001, someone, I believe it was an informant, contacted police to let them know that there was a 42-year-old man who was going around bragging to people that he had kidnapped, essayed, and murdered a whole lot of children in the state of Florida, specifically the Clearwater area. His name was Kevin Jalbert. Sounds a lot like Jailbird, doesn't it? Law enforcement started tracking this guy, and they set it up to have an undercover cop try to meet and befriend this guy, and it worked. So one night, Jalbert and this undercover cop are out riding around Clearwater, and Jalbert is just running his mouth, boasting about all of the horrendous things he's done to little boys, says he's killed 5 kids and assaulted 1,000. He has bleach that he carries around in his car that he says he uses to clean up DNA evidence, and that's how he doesn't get caught. He is just so dang proud of himself. He's even attempting to recruit the undercover cop into helping him kidnap more boys. So anyway, they're cruising around talking, and Jalbert pulls his car into the Savannah Trace apartment complex where Zach and Leah had lived, and he points at one of the apartment buildings and tells the undercover cop, "The last time I took a kid, it was from that apartment." Can you imagine the patience and composure that undercover policemen had to have to sit there and listen to the filth coming out of this sicko's mouth? I couldn't do that job. All the things Jalbert had said he did was enough to bring him in for questioning, but they couldn't directly connect him to Zach's disappearance. Although Jalbert himself had previously also lived in the Savannah Trace complex and had admitted to the undercover cop that he had committed a kidnapping. He hadn't pointed to the correct apartment where Zach had lived, and he gave the wrong clothing description that Zach had been wearing the night he disappeared. Now, some time had passed, and a lot of apartment buildings looked the same, so we could assume maybe he just made a mistake and couldn't remember exactly which apartment it was, or what Zach had been wearing. They gave him a polygraph test concerning Zach's disappearance, and he failed it. But they tested his DNA against the sample they had in evidence, and it was not a match. They also spoke with Jalbert's mother, who provided an alibi saying he was at home the night Zach disappeared. And his sister told police that Jalbert was a chronic liar and said terrible things to gain attention. Jalbert told cops he hadn't really done anything. He said he was and I quote, just fantasizing, but they still had enough reasons to hold this guy. He's bragging about killing kids, he's got bleach in his car, and when they check his home computers, he has an exorbitant amount of illegal and gross pictures of little kids. You know what I mean. They did find something of interest in his vehicle, a receipt for the local public dump, and it was dated for 2 weeks after Zach had disappeared. The landfill he had visited was searched, but they didn't find Zach, anything connected to him, or whatever it was Jalbert had dumped there. But landfills are huge, and honestly, it would be hard to find anything they were looking for. Jalbert had also been a suspect in a Florida child abuse case prior to 2000, but was never charged. They ended up arresting him on June 22nd of 2001 for solicitation of murder charges, since he was telling people that he had committed murder and asking people to help him kidnap more adolescents. Kevin Jalbert was tried and convicted for the CP on his computers and other related charges. He was sentenced to prison, and he will be in there until 2038. So he'll be roughly 79 when he gets out, and hopefully maybe certain parts of him won't work anymore, so he can't do any more evil and get away with it. Authorities have been unable to rule him out as a suspect in Zachary's disappearance. In August of 2001, a photo was found laying in the parking lot of a Boulder, Colorado sporting goods store. I believe it was placed there purposely for someone to find. The photograph was of what looked like a little boy laying on the ground surrounded by what looked like pine needles with his wrists duct taped together. From the angle the photo was taken, you couldn't see much of the boy's face, but he had blonde hair and looked to be pretty young. The photo was shared with Boulder Police, who then shared it with other police departments, including Clearwater Police, who then showed it to Zach's family. They wanted to see if the family thought it could possibly be Zach. His family members studied the photo, and they really didn't think it was him. Police have never came to that conclusion, though. They weren't convinced that it wasn't Zach, and if it wasn't him, it was someone else's child. Still to this day, sadly, they have never figured out who the child in the photo is. As the 1-year mark of Zach's disappearance approached, the family planned a prayer vigil to try to keep Zach's face and story out there. The news media was going to be there, and they really wanted the opportunity to renew the public's interest in the case. They had planned this event to take place on September 11th of 2001. Well, we all know what happened that day. The 9/11 attacks on the U.S. were all over the news. It was pretty much all they were showing, and no one was interested in covering a missing child case that happened a year ago, so the vigil didn't happen. At 6 p.m. on New Year's Eve of 2001, there were some little boys playing at the playground located within the Savannah Trace apartment complex. Again, same complex where Zach had lived. And these boys were approached by a man in a white truck that had ice cream decals all over it and possibly a Stone Cold Steve Austin sticker. The man offered them all ice cream, and the youngest of the boys in the group, a 5-year-old, walked over to the man, and when he did, the man snatched him up, put him in the truck, and zoomed out of there. Of course, the other boys saw everything go down, and police were immediately notified. They released a description of the truck and the abductor to the public. The man was described as a thin Caucasian male with shoulder-length, stringy, dark-colored hair. Around 10 hours after the 5-year-old was taken, he was found alive, thank God, inside a dumpster by a KFC about 80 miles away from where he had been taken. A passerby thankfully heard him crying and came to his rescue. He had been assaulted, but no other details were released, and the abductor was never caught, nor was the truck ever found. Law enforcement doesn't believe this crime was in any way connected to Zach's disappearance, even though it was in the same apartment complex and happened just 15 months after Zach vanished. But Zach's family isn't convinced that there isn't connection. I can't say I am either. That's quite the coincidence, and it's terrifying that this guy is still out there unpunished. A credible tip in or around 2007 placed a possible sighting of Zach all the way in the Pacific Northwest, but investigators located the male child in question and determined that he was not Zach. It's been almost 22 years since Zach disappeared, and police are no closer to knowing what happened to him than they were that day back in 2000. The family has been pulled apart somewhat, with half of the family believing Leah was the victim of media bashing and that she could never harm her son, while the other half believes she had something to do with his disappearance. Zach's grandmother and aunt still very much try to keep Zach's story out there. His grandma still wears a necklace with his picture on it and hopes that she will get to see Zach again before her time on this earth is done. Zachary Michael Cole Bernhardt has blonde hair, hazel eyes, and scars on his nose, chin, and lower lip. At the time of his disappearance, he was 4 feet, 8 inches tall, and weighed 60 pounds. He was last seen wearing only a pair of boxer shorts. Today, Zach would be 30 years old. What happened to Zachary? Was there an accident in his home that Leah felt she had to cover up? If he was taken, does she know who took him? I don't want to believe Leah did anything to her son. I realize it's an unpopular opinion, but I'm not fully convinced she's responsible. However, I don't think she is telling the complete truth about that night. That's not me saying I think she knows what happened, but I think she was probably gone longer than the 15 minutes she claims and probably feels guilty about it. If the time was more in the 1 or 2 hour range, it would make her look even worse for leaving her young son that long in an unlocked apartment and leaving him susceptible to someone with ill intentions. I wonder if she happened to notice any cars leaving the complex as she walked. I wonder about the swimming too. There is a 6-foot fence around the pool, and according to someone on Reddit that says they know the place, supposedly the pool closed at 10 p.m. each night. Most apartment complexes give a key or a passcode to their residents. Leah didn't have any keys on her that night, so how did she get into the pool? Maybe she had a passcode or a key code, or maybe the pool wasn't actually locked at night. Maybe there was just like a sign posted saying they closed, but the gate could still be opened. Or maybe she hopped the fence, but that seems like a lot of extra work and effort to do something you don't normally want to do or like to do. I do think it's odd that Leah moved away shortly after Zach went missing. I think most parents, including myself, would not have left or even moved from where I was living, because I'd always be waiting for my child to come home. But everyone is different. She may be completely innocent. She may be telling the truth of the events and timeline of that night, however odd they may seem. And maybe she moved away because of the heartache and couldn't bear to be in the same home without her son. We may never know. She has never been named as a person of interest in her son's disappearance. If someone did enter the apartment with the intention of kidnapping a child, who would be around in the early morning hours watching Leah's apartment, waiting to see if she left? Had someone been watching her? Was taking late night or early morning walks something she did on a regular basis? And did someone know this and expect it? Or did someone just happen to be outside, see her leave, and took this as an opportunity to abduct a child? If this is the case, how did they know a child was asleep inside the apartment? We could assume maybe they planned to rob the place and happened upon Zach. Maybe Zach woke up and the person thought they had to take him because he would now be able to identify them. But as far as what I have read, no items were missing from the home, and there were no signs of a struggle or evidence of really anything. Did Zach wake up and run outside when he couldn't find his mother in their apartment? Did he go looking for her and something happened? There are bodies of water and canals all over the place in Clearwater. Did he fall into one? Scent dogs didn't pick up his scent, so it's unlikely he walked away from the apartment. Seems like he had to have been carried out. He didn't have a working bicycle, so he didn't hop on a bike and ride off. Zach often played outdoors with neighborhood kids while Leah was sleeping during the day. Did he meet someone his mother did not know, and this person showed up and somehow got him to leave with them? Maybe they told him his mom was in trouble and easily convinced him to go. His family has said that Zach would normally do whatever he was told to do. Clearwater does bring in a lot of tourists, so could someone that just happened to be passing through have seen him and snagged him up? Is Kevin Jalbert responsible, or was his confession to the undercover cop just a lie for notoriety? What about the stringy-haired guy that abducted the 5-year-old? He was never caught, and it was in the same apartment complex just 15 months after Zach was allegedly taken. There are so many unanswered questions. I was able to find Leah on social media. She's using a different name, or at least she is on that platform, but I chose not to contact her. She probably wouldn't have responded to me anyway, and I feel like she has probably been hounded enough over the years and doesn't need some amateur YouTuber messaging her. I am not going to out her either and give out the name she's under or the site I found her on. She has chosen to stay private, and I'm going to respect that. I did notice in a few pictures of her, the very few I could find, that there is a sadness in her eyes. Even when she's smiling, you can still see pain. You know how you can just tell when someone is hurting. Whether she knows what happened or not to her son, she probably replays that night over and over in her mind every single day. Zach's case is the longest running Amber Alert in the state of Florida, and they really need someone to come forward with new information. If you know anything about Zach's whereabouts or what happened to him, please contact the Clearwater Police Department at 727-562-4422. His family has endured almost 22 years of not knowing anything. It is time they had some answers. I will link the About a Boy episode Investigation Discovery did on Zach's case down in the description box if you are interested in seeing it. They have some very sweet home videos of Zach on there where you can see what an amazing and joyful little kid he was. Please share Zach's flyer and also share this video if you think it will help. Do not let Zach be forgotten. 2 decades have come and gone, but I have no doubt there is someone out there that knows exactly what happened to Zachary Bernhardt. Perhaps even someone watching this video. So will you be the one who looks away or the one who does something about it? Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload new missing person videos. You can always come back later and unsubscribe if you like, but of course, I hope you will stick around. And if you don't want to subscribe, that's okay too. Just know that I really appreciate you being here for this video. I would highly suggest checking out my entire missing playlist, as each case I cover is super important and deserves more exposure. Thanks again, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.